This is Where We Live. I'm John Dankosky. A quick look at the cable industry shows some very interesting contrasts. Cable operators, like the big local operator Comcast, are losing customers. They're going increasingly to internet streaming services where there's plenty of choice, and you really only have to pay for the stuff you watch. On top of that, the cost of programming that they buy from cable going up all the time, 6 to 10% a year. Meanwhile, a new study shows that those cable networks that are providing the programming are doing just fine, thank you very much, negotiating nearly $25 million in fees in 2010 alone. They're even having to pay rights fees to get the major network stations, the ones that we can still get for free over the air. This old model, which dates back to the dawn of cable television, has meant a few things for customers: rates that seem to rise each year, even when services don't change, and the perpetuation of this 500 channels and nothing to watch phenomenon that feeds us tons of programming, whether we're interested or not. So, is a new day coming for cable? Cable, of course, big business here in the state. You can join the conversation. Give us a call, 860-275-7266. 860-275-7266. Are you a cable subscriber, or are you getting your TV shows in a new way? Roku, Boxee, Netflix, DirecTV. What do you think needs to change? Is it about competition or a la carte programming? Again, 860-275-7266. We'd love to hear from you today. You can tweet us at Where We Live. You can also tweet me at John Dankosky. Our guest in studio is Paul Cianelli. He's president of the New England Cable and Telecommunications Association. Paul, welcome to the program. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
I also want to welcome in Ian Olgerson, who's a senior analyst with SNL Kagan, who covers the U.S. multi-channel sector. A new report called Economics of Basic Cable Networks, the 2011 edition, is out. We'll be talking about some of these economics off the top of the program. Ian, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So from your study, what can you tell us, Ian, about how exactly cable and the cable industry is doing?
Well, I mean, certainly the industry is facing a host of new pressures, but they have also at the same time are experiencing a continued strong interest in programming, continued strong interest by viewers. We continually see viewing rates going up. So it's a period of interesting change and great pressure, but as well as a lot of opportunity in that mix.
So who's really doing well in all the different wings of the cable industry? From what we understand from your study, the networks, the programming networks, seem to be doing very well. Thank you.
Well, certainly the programmers appear to be in sort of the catbird seat in terms of driving a lot of the economics of the industry. The old saying of content being king has never been more evident than it is currently, as the content is generally the place that or as content really drives the viewership. The cable operators themselves aren't doing bad either. Certainly, they see a lot of pressure on the programming side in terms of their costs going up, and they're in some cases stuck in kind of a difficult position in terms of passing those costs along. But they also have a myriad of advanced services that they're selling to consumers, and those advanced services tend to have very high margins and tend to support the cable industry pretty well.
Those other services are some of the bundles, I assume, that the cable operators are selling. I can get my phone through them. I can get my internet through them. Is that what you're talking about?
Sure. I mean, you can look at the different platforms. High-speed data being the primary one that not only has very high margins, but has some pricing headroom, meaning the operators are seeing the ability to raise their rates on high-speed data, as well as strong popularity. You can also see some of the other advanced services within video, such as digital video recorders, and to a lesser extent things like HD and VOD that are also helping support video services.
I want to bring in Paul Cianelli here and find out from you how you believe the cable industry is doing right now. In some ways, it seems as though it's doing very well, as Ian reports. In other ways, we do see that viewers are finding new ways to find the programming they love that are not out of the traditional cable models. How's your industry doing right now?
Overall, I think our industry is really doing very well, and we continue to be innovative. We continue to go in different directions. We work closely with a consortium called Cable Labs to make sure we're on the front end of technology. But there are many different services that we're looking at. The competition is keen. It's fierce. It's everywhere. And in that vein, we want to be in the front end. And so we have things like TV Everywhere where we're trying to do deals with programmers so that if you're a subscriber to one of our cable providers, that you can watch your programs on your tablet, on your iPhone, on any device. And that's very important, especially for the younger generation. We're also concerned about costs. Costs on the video side we are having with our share of fights with programmers. But, the programmers in the cable industry built this industry, and it's sort of like a marriage. Right now it's a little rocky, and we're maybe at marriage counseling, but, we hope to move forward. I think you see different companies experimenting with lower-cost alternatives, like, for example, Comcast has My Choice, My TV Choice. They're experimenting with that to allow particularly 18 to 30-year-olds, that are very conscious about what video costs, to have some alternatives. And they base those packages on genres: kids, news, entertainment, lifestyle.
But of course, one question that a lot of people have, especially some younger people who are used to just wanting to get whatever they want whenever they want, is why do they have to choose from the packages that you offer them? Why can't they just say, here's what I like. What I like is ESPN, I like a few other things, and that's about it. And I like the Comedy Channel, and that's it. I'm going to get those things from you. I'm happy to pay you. Why can't we just have that?
Well, right now, what we're doing is packaging different programming. But don't forget the other multi-channel video providers, DirecTV, Dish TV, AT&T, Verizon. If they could have done it, or it could have been successful, they would have done it right out of the gates. The problem is it's very costly. Our contracts don't allow that right now. There are all sorts of technical and billing issues associated with that. But that's a marketplace issue. Marketplace forces are going to push that in one direction or the other, not government-mandated a la carte programming.
When you say the contracts don't allow it, explain exactly what that means. Because there's the consumer model. I think a lot of consumers would certainly like it, and consumers might push you in that direction. But the contracts currently don't allow it. Which contracts and with whom?
Well, the programming contracts that we have with the various cable-delivered satellite services mandate they be on basic service and that they not be sold a la carte. Also, when we talk a la carte, you have some serious legal obstacles to overcome. I mean, when it's true a la carte programming would mean that if you didn't want to carry the local ABC affiliate, the local access channel, that you'd have those choices. Right now, under federal law, we have no choice but to carry those. So the idea of true a la carte programming go up and down from everything from your local access channel to your network affiliate to ESPN, those things, they would have a long way to go legally to overcome that. Now, with that said, look, it's all about this industry is not technologically driven. It's user pulled and politically shaped, and the consumer, the user, is going to dictate where we're going to go and where the others are going to go.
Well, Ian Olgerson, as an outside analyst here, how much right now are the consumers dictating where the cable industry is going?
Well, I mean, I think that we certainly hear a lot about the frustration from consumers surrounding the big packages, but they tend to, if you think about people voting with their wallets, they for the most part, are sticking with those big packages. For the average household, when you have multiple members of the household, those packages, even if you could order the programming on an a la carte basis, would probably quickly sort of balloon in terms of price on an a la carte basis around what many people are used to paying just for the basic programming level. But I think it's important to note that we have the external force of sort of internet delivered content. We call when a consumer decides to move away from a multi-channel package or not sign up for a multi-channel package in the first place, we call that over-the-top substitution. And certainly the popularity of content delivered over the top is evident. For the most part, it has not created sort of a mass exodus of subscribers from cable telco video services or DBS. But it certainly does show that the consumers have some have interest in sort of being their own aggregators of content, and for those relatively at this point relatively small slice of consumers that choose to substitute with just over-the-top content, if they're willing to make some sacrifices, there's certainly an abundant amount of content and a nice pipeline in many cases provided by the cable operators as well as the telcos to receive that content.
Ian Olgerson's a senior analyst with SNL Kagan. They've done a report, Economics of Basic Cable Networks, for 2011. We're talking about the cable industry today. Paul Cianelli is here as well. He's president of New England Cable and Telecommunications Association. I want to tell you that our phone number is 860-275-7266. If you want to join this conversation, we'd like to hear whether or not you're a cable subscriber, if you've given up cable, if you're getting your programming from some other technology, some other new way of finding things. We'd love to hear from you. 860-275-7266. Paul, I know you want to pick up on that.
Well, I don't think that these different technologies, too, are mutually exclusive. A lot of our subscribers also subscribe to Netflix, which has had an unbelievable success story. They may also subscribe to Hulu. So these things are not necessarily mutually exclusive. And, the younger generations, they use what we call, rug boxes, the Wi-Fis, the Xboxes, the PlayStations. They use that to get their programming and video programming. And programming today, the definition of that is a lot different than we might think. It's YouTube. It's all these streaming videos. It's BitTorrent. It's different types of programming than traditional programming.
But given this, the fact that your primary business is still selling traditional cable channels that come through a cable, through a set-top box, and that are delivered in essentially an unbroken linear stream to my eyeballs, where I have to skip over commercials. Maybe I use your DVR services and I tape them so I can completely skip over the commercials. But understanding that this is the world that we're moving into and this is where new consumers are, how do you adapt to this? Because it seems as though that old model of providing these 500 channels of linear programming that people can't choose when they get a chance to see things, that's not the future. That might not be 2012.
Couldn't agree with you more, and the industry couldn't agree with you more. Comcast just yesterday signed a deal with Disney to allow their viewers to watch ESPN and ABC on their mobile devices. I think yesterday too that Fox, NBC has a joint venture. They signed a deal with Metro PCS, which is the fifth largest provider of cell service, to stream their programming to those devices. And we understand that, and that's why we've developed all these different services. When you look at our on-demand platform, we accept on-demand as, oh yeah, that service has been around forever. It hasn't been around that long. People love that service. And so to a certain extent, when you talk a la carte, on-demand provides you many of those opportunities to go and watch the programs you want when you want. But, the other services, the add-on services, and Ian mentioned this, HDTV, VODs, once you've had that, it's tough to go back. I mean, it's really, those were breakthrough technologies that people love.
I want to get to some phone calls. Matt's calling from Ellington. Hello, Matt. Go ahead. You're on Where We Live.
Hi, good morning, John. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
What really frustrates me about this industry is that there's no choice town by town. I actually think the quality of the products from Comcast that we get in Ellington is good. But what's annoying is the level of the quality of the customer service. They put on commercials and pride themselves on their customer service, and they say, if we don't show up on time, you'll get $20. I think it's telling that it's only $20. Last year, I was having new service installed. It was 3 times that they didn't show up in 1 week. Of course, they'd only give you one refund of $20. I also have a problem with their billing. Every other company I deal with online with billing is very simple to use, and it's very easy to understand their bill. Always feel like I'm being duped by this industry, and you call them to have them explain the bill to you, and they have no clue.
Well, Matt, and Matt, let me put it. You've given us a lot of stuff to talk about, and I appreciate that because I want to put it to Paul here. So Matt is basically saying, I like the service, I like the actual programming that Comcast provides, but what I don't like is the customer service, right? And so maybe we can address that, but I think the more important point is that in almost any other business, if he didn't like one part of what he was paying for, he'd walk across the street. He'd go buy from someone else, but he can't buy from anybody else in that town. And that's one of the major frustrations. How do you respond to Matt?
Well, first of all, Matt, I'm sorry that happened. And I think, if you call Comcast or email them again and explain that, hopefully you'll get some more satisfaction because customer service is an area that we're all focusing on to distinguish us from other multi-channel video providers. For example, if you take Dish TV and you call customer service, you get the Philippines. If you call any of our companies, you're going to get Connecticut or New England. Now, in terms of choice, I mean, everybody has a choice for different platforms. Everyone can choose the local cable provider. In many parts of the state, you also have AT&T. You can go with the various streaming videos, and of course, you have DirecTV and Dish TV available just about everywhere.
But there's nothing analogous to the local Comcast provider. You can't get in my town. You can't get the AT&T service. In some towns, Dish service doesn't really make sense, and I know you folks are in competition with the Dish service. The fact that you can't get somebody other than Comcast to provide that service, why not? Is I guess a big question.
Well, we hope we provide a unique service. We try to distinguish ourselves from the other providers. That's how you stay in business. And I think we offer a great package, but you can get a video service from other providers. Video is only one aspect of our business. The residential and commercial phone business is a big business. The cost of your residential phone service since 2000 has gone down like 70%. I mean, think of the package that you can get from the various cable providers. Call anywhere in the United States, Canada, Puerto Rico for a flat fee. I mean, in 2000 we had long distance providers, we had local providers. You call Sunday night between 8 and 8:15 for the best rates. So we have been saving consumers millions of dollars on that side. In our high-speed data product, I mean, we keep on developing that. We keep on investing in the network. The Donahue Institute of the University of Massachusetts did a study here in Connecticut about just how much we're investing in the network, which is so important. And so we have to, look at what we're doing in that regard. But in terms of choice, on the phone side, you have, you have the various wireless providers. You have AT&T. You have us.
Oh, there's tons of phone choice, and that's I think a frustration for many customers is there's lots of phone choice, and there's at least a few different ways in which you can get your internet service delivered to your home. It's just the cable product, those channels that we love so much that we'd like to get delivered to our house. We in every town only have the one. The question I asked before is why is it that we don't have a competitor for Comcast? Why can't we have another company in Matt's town that says, hey, I want to use cable in a different, I want to provide slightly lower service or a different sort of customer service or different packages for you?
But, I keep on going back to this, John. I mean, you get all these packages from DirecTV and Dish TV, which have a lot of low-cost alternatives. They don't have any infrastructure to worry about. They don't have any employees in Connecticut. You can go to them. AT&T covers a good part of the state, but in terms of the video business is a tough business. I mean, people aren't lining up to get into it because there are so many competitors in it already. I mean, if you come into the video business, you got to take on DirecTV, Dish TV, AT&T, one of the largest telecommunications companies in the world. So I think there's plenty of alternatives right now. And is it exactly the same? No. I mean, every company works very diligently to distinguish themselves. I mean, DirecTV signed that deal with the NFL where they have exclusive rights to the NFL package, things of that nature to distinguish themselves from the local cable provider.
And as we'll be talking about later, there's a pretty good battle going on between DirecTV and the cable companies. We're talking today with Paul Cianelli. He's president of New England Cable and Telecommunications Association. We want to understand a little bit more about how the cable television industry works, and I know you have some questions at 860-275-7266. When we come back, we will get to some of those questions as well. We'd like to thank Ian Olgerson, who joined us today. He's senior analyst with SNL Kagan. On our website, WNPR.org, keyword where, we'll put up links to economics of basic cable networks so you can find out a bit more about their report. We'll come back right after this break, Where We Live. This is Where We Live. I'm John Dankosky. Today we're talking about the cable industry with Paul Cianelli, president of New England Cable and Telecommunications Association. We want to hear from you, 860-275-7266. Do you still have your traditional cable service? Are you going to other types of programming providers? What are you using right now? 860-275-7266. Nancy's in West Hartford. Hey there, Nancy. Go ahead. You're on Where We Live.
Good morning, John. Thanks for taking my call. I want to thank NPR for this topic because it was 8 years ago today that I stopped listening or watching cable because I was so tired of the up rates of cost each month when they said it was $59 and it became $69, $79, $109. And so 8 years ago I stopped and I started listening to NPR, and I absolutely love listening rather than watching television because it's a sad state of affairs to think that I grew up in this stage where you could turn on TV and it was free. So I really think that my money can be better spent on submitting my funds to NPR because that is the best thing that I have been turned on to.
Well,
my entire life, I love NPR, and so I support NPR, and sometimes I can give a little, and sometimes I give a little bit more, and sometimes I give a lot, but I get so much more out of NPR than any cable station on the planet.
Well, Nancy, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you not only listening, but giving that nice shout-out for us. I will say something, though, that Paul mentioned earlier, and just very quickly, some of the same pressures that the cable industry is facing right now, public radio is facing as well. For instance, NPR, which is a network we pay for programming, actually provides some of its programming direct to consumers via different sources, including the internet, mobile devices. And so we at public radio stations are really dependent on people like you, Nancy, giving us money, because if we didn't have money, we wouldn't be able to then buy the programming from NPR. And there may come a time at some point when NPR completely goes around us and just provides programming directly to people. It's sort of the situation that Paul's industry is in right now. I just want to quickly get to one more phone call here before I bring Paul back in. Kurt's in Hamden. Hi there, Kurt. Go ahead.
Hi. Wow. Yeah, I'm an NPR supporter too, but I still pay my cable bill. Anyway, about the a la carte pricing, we can go back to that for a second. I only watch a handful of channels, and I was really looking forward to the a la carte pricing. And then when it came out, I looked at it a couple months ago, and it turns out that if I just pay for the packages that contain those few channels that I watch, I end up paying more per month than I would otherwise. So it just doesn't make sense to me, which is probably why the a la carte is not selling as well as they'd hoped.
Yeah, and again, a la carte's not exactly available everywhere. Maybe you can explain a bit to Kurt or talk through what he had to say.
Well, that is a problem. There have been a number of studies done that show that a la carte pricing does usually result in higher rates, less diversity, less program choice. That the programmers will charge us a different rate, and ultimately the consumer a different rate for a la carte programming. You know, they're looking to get on a basic service and get as many eyeballs as possible. They want to be in front of the entire group of consumers. So a la carte pricing is not a panacea.
But they're not in front of the entire group of consumers because people don't watch the channels that they don't want to watch. And in what it may be forcing is a world in which the very industry that they're trying to get all the eyeballs on, yours namely, will eventually go down the tubes because of the enormous weight of the costs of their programming. It seems to me, Paul, not to put too fine a point on it, but they are sinking the ship.
Well, on the video side, that's why we are experimenting with these different packages. They are packages that it's like buying a car, in the sense that you can get the basic car and then you can buy various packages. When you start trying to buy all the options individually, the prices just get too expensive. So that's sort of the analogy. But it's not that we're insensitive to this. We are very sensitive to this, and we're trying to deal with it. One of the Kagan reports, explain how sports programming costs are dominating the cost of cable. ESPN alone is, according to Kagan, $469 a month.
It's more now than $4 a subscriber, right? Yeah.
It's $469 per month per subscriber, and that's just ESPN, not all the sister stations that go along with it. Now, with that said, ESPN provides compelling programming, unique programming. So we're trying to work through this. And again, I do the marriage counseling thing. We're trying to work through this so that we're not losing customers. In Connecticut alone, 1 out of 4 customers decide to use a different multi-channel video provider. It's pretty significant.
Let's go to Martha. Hi there, Martha. Go ahead.
Hi. So I just wanted to comment originally on other carriers, but actually another lady made a point I would much rather address.
Please do.
And that would be into the perspective of how people say that there's nothing on or that they're paying too much for what they're getting, but I think it's a total lack of education. I don't think that they realize how much they actually get for what they're paying for. I mean, video on demand, over 95% of it's free. And on top of that, there's so much more than just movies and TV shows in there. And also, they can watch it in any room. They can watch it on their computers. I mean, really, there is a lot of value in what they're getting. And if they're feeling misled on their promotions, and by definition, promotion will end, look at the $44.99 package that Comcast did a couple years ago, and it went up $10 the next year. But it included all of your basic programming, extended programming, the digital starter, video on demand, and it was a tremendous value. It had a DVR, a box, a remote included.
Well, Martha, can I?
Lack of education.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying. Can I ask you just maybe a couple quick questions? Do you work for a cable company personally?
I do, actually.
Okay. So my next question is, to use one of Paul's analogies, perhaps, he talked about it's like buying a car. What I think a lot of consumers are saying is, it's like going into a showroom and saying, what I really need is a Honda Fit. And them saying, no, you have to take this Rolls Royce. And you're saying, no, I really want a Honda Fit. And them saying, no, but you can get it in every room, but you have to pay $150. Do you see the point is that essentially a lot of what people want is just the basics or just the things they want. They don't want to have to pay the overhead for all these other things that are provided that they don't want.
Well, and as a subscriber, and I do subscribe, I pay for my services amongst other utilities, and I won't go there, but be that as it may, and I'll just say a regular price of just normal cable, I won't even go to basic. I will go with, the middle-of-the-road digital starter, we'll say. That includes a lot of channels that are your news, your sports, your music, your movies, and just all-around entertainment. It's what keeps people connected to the world. And in that perspective, I really feel that it's an all-around fit. It's trying to match, in my opinion, the bigger of the whole, if you will. I mean, I've seen other companies, try to, like Cox, they've tried to do, a la carte things, and what ends up happening is the small amount of people that want particularly just that channel doesn't outweigh, the whole of most people wanting that channel or not wanting that channel.
And Martha, thank you very much for your phone call. I appreciate it. And I want to go back go back to Paul on this. I think another thing that maybe consumers don't understand, as Martha was trying to bring up, there's infrastructure costs. There's an awful lot of things that the cable company has to deal with. I'm wondering if you could just quickly talk about that so that we understand a little bit better what, for instance, the cable companies have to do in order to maintain their infrastructure in order to get this service that comes to your house every day.
Well, in Connecticut alone, in the from 2006 to 2010, the major cable companies here invested more than $928 million in capital improvements. And in 2010, we did $165 million alone. And that is to provide you with top-notch quality service, all services. And it's very important that we understand the investment that we're making in the infrastructure. This is not yesterday's technology. It's new, it's innovative, and we continue to go in that direction. One aspect of our business that we haven't talked about is business services. The cable industry in Connecticut has provided small and medium businesses and now large businesses with business services that are saving hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Before, it was a take it or leave it, essentially from AT&T. Now we provide competitive voice, competitive internet at a substantially lower price. And it's been a great business for Connecticut businesses, and one that continues to grow. And we will continue to invest in that aspect of the business. But also, we're getting bogged down a lot on this a la carte pricing issue. And again, consumers have so many different choices. I mean, the very streaming choices that we talk about are usually over our network, the network that we built and that provides the high-speed connections. It wasn't that long ago, 15, 18 years ago, I was in some analyst meetings, and we were talking about providing high-speed data, and they thought we were crazy. Cable was viewed as low-tech. We could never do this. And don't forget, before we came along, there were T1 lines, and that was about it, and they were extremely expensive. Then as we rolled out our high-speed data, AT&T and Verizon started following us around with DSL service. And we continue to improve that product every year to provide a better experience for our customers. The prices have stayed pretty stable. We have a number of initiatives that are very important called things like Connect to Compete, where we're going to be providing low-cost cable service for students from K through 12 that are part of the school lunch program for $9.95 a month. The modem will be no charge to lease or small cost if you want to buy it, and access to cheap computers. So we continue to grow, to innovate, to do different things. And I think your last caller was making that point. There's so much more than just the pure video. But with that said, if somebody is just interested in video, there are so many different places to go. The two satellite companies are roku, Hulu, Netflix.
And we're going to be talking about some of those actually coming up in a moment. I want to let our listeners know again, we're talking with Paul Cianelli, who's president of New England Cable and Telecommunications Association. We're taking your calls at 860-275-7266. Quickly, I want to bring in Bruce Kushnick, who's a telecom analyst, chairman of Teletruth, an independent consumer advocacy group that focuses on broadband and telecom issues. Bruce, welcome to our program.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. One of the things that Paul was just talking about, I'd really like to actually focus on some of the broadband issues. The cable companies have invested quite substantially in broadband access, into internet access across America. How do you think they've done, especially when lined up against, say, the telephone companies like AT&T?
Well, the telephone companies have done an atrocious job, especially AT&T and Uverse. Basically, it's an inferior product that was supposed to be upgraded. All of Connecticut should have been upgraded with a fiber optic wire by now. The telephone company AT&T collected about $15 billion to do it in the state. They were supposed to have everything done by the year 2007. So as far as AT&T is concerned, they're really not offering serious competition for the future. The cable companies, on the other hand, when he talks about a la carte pricing, let me go to Connect to Compete. The FCC basically has this new package of idea where basically they're saying that we're going to make the American standard 8 megabits of speed, where other countries have 100 megabits of speed. The cable companies, basically, in case you don't know, starting in 1996, had a social contract with America where they were collecting about $1 a month per subscriber, which went to $5 a month in some states per month, which basically was for the upgrades of the networks. The networks weren't just upgraded by the cable companies; they were upgraded by them charging the cable customers through the social contract. Social contract was supposed to end in the year 2000 and didn't end, and we estimate that they've collected $46 billion from customers to pay for the upgrades that they're talking about. Remember, cable was only supposed to be the cable service, but now they have another revenue stream, which is the broadband service. They have another revenue stream, which is the internet service. They have another revenue stream, which is all of the other programming. So basically what we suggested that they separate the content from the wires, let the wires basically go to cost plus, and let and then people, when they want to get a la carte, can buy what they want at a very cheap price, because the extra prices shouldn't add up for more than the retail price of a package.
Well, I wonder, Paul, could you give a quick response to Bruce?
Well, first of all, I mean, the concept of separating content from delivery services, something we'd be opposed to. It doesn't make any sense. All the innovation, all the changes have come because of the model that exists right now, and we've never thought of ourselves as just cable television. We're cable telecommunications. Over that platform, we want to provide a lot of different new and innovative services. As far as the social contract that existed way back when, something I'd honestly have to refresh my memory on that whole thing, but it doesn't exist now. We're not collecting money from anybody to build a network.
It's built into basic rates.
It's
built into basic rates in almost all the states.
It's not built into basic rates. Basic rates are regulated rates. They're regulated at the state level.
But what about to Bruce's point, where whether or not, and we'll set that aside, however the cable companies have collected money from consumers over time, could there be a larger, Paul, investment in infrastructure that allows us to get to a point where we have something that is more approaching a European standard or a global standard, where we have faster, higher speed internet? Is there a way to make an investment that works? What would that cost? Is that something that the industry is interested in doing?
Well, we're always interested in upgrading our service, upgrading our speeds.
Hold on for a second, Bruce. I'll give you a second.
And we continue to do that. Every so often, people talk about, Korea has this, or this has this. Our services are competitive with any place in the world. When it comes to businesses, we dedicate fiber to the businesses. We do separate backhauls. This is not a question. This industry does not have to be defensive about the investment in the risk capital that they put out there. I think we've done a great job, especially when you look at competitors that we've had to face, the giants like AT&T and Verizon. I mean, Bruce may have an issue with them, but in terms of the cable industry, forging ahead and creating this network, I think would be applauded, not criticized.
And Bruce, quickly, if you'd like to respond.
Well, my feeling about the cable companies is they are doing a better job in supplying services than the phone companies, who have basically just stopped. But recently, as of last couple of weeks ago, the cable companies, which were supposed to have all this wireless spectrum, have basically sold it to Verizon. And now Verizon is not going to build out their networks anymore, and they're going to become a wireless company making a deal with the cable companies, which basically means that there won't be any serious cable competition because the phone companies are not going to step up to the plate. And one last thing.
Please.
In Hong Kong today, they are offering 100 megabits for $20. Including, and in other countries, they're offering cable and internet speeds for $25, like France and Japan. So America basically has been overcharged on a regular basis for all of the services, and it's systemic. It's built into the way that the businesses are being run because they're basically a duopoly or a monopoly, depending on where you look.
Bruce, I got to let you go. Bruce Kushnick is a telecom analyst, chairman of TeleTruth. Thank you so much for joining us for a couple of minutes here. I appreciate it.
Sure, thanks.
When we come back, we're going to take some more of your phone calls. We've also got an expert on the future of media, Joshua Braun from Quinnipiac University, talk about how some of these new ways of getting programming, the rokus and the boxees, how they might work. 860-275-7266. This is Where We Live. This is Where We Live. I'm John Dankosky. Coming up on tomorrow's show, Connecticut native Ralph Nader's staying out of the presidential race, but he's still fired up about corporatism. We'll talk to him about that. Oz Griebel is head of the Metro Hartford Alliance. He's going to come back to talk about the capital city's rebranding campaign, where it stands in 2012, and the fracking debate continues into a new year. A few stories to catch up on here on Where We Live, on air and online at WNPR.org, keyword where. Hope you can join us tomorrow. Today we're talking with Paul Cianelli, president of New England Cable and Telecommunications Association, as we talk about the cable system, cable companies that we have going into our home. A lot is changing about them, so I want to bring in Joshua Braun, assistant professor of communications at Quinnipiac University, who studied legacy media in a new age. Josh, welcome to the program.
Oh, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
So for a couple of minutes, let's talk about the future here. We've talked about some of the alternatives. How do you see some of the things that are out there? We've talked about Roku and boxee and Netflix and maybe even satellite television. How do they stack up to cable right now and moving into the future?
Well, let's see. I mean, the short answer is it's going to be complicated. I don't think the future is at all certain yet. So first of all, if you want to talk about these the sort of boxes like Roku and boxee, Google TV, Apple TV, Yahoo TV, all these things, just that list kind of says it all. You have a pretty divided marketplace at this point, and so you have, so you have to have sort of content providers on board, developers on board to sort of provide the apps, provide the sort of streaming standards and everything else that will get content onto those devices. And at this point, it's anybody's guess which ones are going to win out. I mean, I think Microsoft probably has a pretty good showing. I mean, they're kind of turning Xboxes into also a mechanism for delivering live TV and even live sports. And so, they're kind of turning a device that a lot of people already have in their homes into something that can easily deliver internet sort of delivered content to their televisions.
What about this? What about this conversation we were having earlier, where it seems as though the consumer is going toward this model, Joshua, where they want to have what they want now, and the cable companies are still, in many ways, they're providing some of those services, but they're also providing some more traditional services. Do you think that this is going to work for the cable companies to provide some of these other options, things like cable anywhere?
Yeah, so the TV everywhere is obviously, it's cable's sort of big bid to really stay in stay a top dog in the content delivery arena online, and so it's going to be really interesting to see how it works out. So on the one hand, the one benefit that live TV still has over on demand and a la carte and all of this is that people can actually kind of watch it together. So you look at sort of people are billing Twitter and services like GetGlue and Tunerfish as kind of a two-screen experience where you can kind of watch and tweet along live to sporting events and so on and so forth. And on the other hand, there is a really strong sort of push for and demand for sort of for on-demand content. So my undergraduate students are virtual encyclopedias of where you can get sort of content online for free when you want to watch it, regardless of whether or not it might be entirely legal. So it's I think that there's going to be sort of definitely a cohort effect that kind of rolls through, because you have a lot of younger folks out there who do want these things when they want them, and they're not necessarily going to wait for the cable companies to provide it on terms that they like. For people who want this stuff legally, right now you're getting kind of a situation where the services are kind of divided up, almost like you can only get certain cell phones through certain cellular carriers. You can only get certain shows through certain services. So if you subscribe to Netflix, you've got a smattering of television shows that are offered on demand through Netflix. It's a different selection than you get if you're through Hulu or through Amazon or Prime or some other online streaming service. And so.
Yeah.
If you want this content legally, basically you have to buy two or three different of these online services to sort of match what you get through cable right now.
Well, and you said legally and piracy a couple different times. I will say that we're going to need to do a follow-up program about that phenomenon and the Stop Online Piracy Act coming up probably in the next couple of weeks here on Where We Live, because there's an awful lot to talk about there. Let's quickly go to the phone. Susan's in Durham. Hi, Susan.
Hi. I just wanted to comment that, I agreed with Bruce, the telecom analyst, that the cable is a monopoly, because if you get a choice, cable or the phone company, and if you choose cable, you're stuck stuck with the company, whoever serves your area. I'm stuck with Comcast. I don't get to choose Cox, although I'm only about 5 or 6 miles from Cox. I don't get that choice. I don't get the choice of choosing between different cable companies. I'm stuck with whoever provides the service in my area.
Susan,
also,
go ahead quickly.
The other thing I'd like to comment on is, when you're looking for a cable provider or, internet provider, new subscribers constantly get these wonderful offers and these great prices. If you've been a loyal Comcast customer for 20, 25 years, you don't get any great breaks. You don't get any rewards.
Yeah, we've all gotten those things in the mail, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Tony's in Danbury. Tony, go ahead quickly, and I apologize. We just got to get through some phone calls here. Go ahead.
Oh, not a problem. How are you today?
Doing well. What's up?
Very good. I think one of the biggest hurdles that our industry has, the cable industry has, I'm an account executive for a large cable provider in Litchfield, is the very close relationship with the consumer that had disconnected. When we have to go back out and actually enter someone's home and ask for a chance to evaluate, the biggest hurdle is that the consumer isn't on board with what's going on in the industry 100%, which we can't expect them to be. So when we come out, the biggest thing that a cable provider can actually do in the future, going forward, is to educate what's going on in the industry and let them know exactly what pricing is here now and how it affects them in the future.
And
you
so,
you take an old school landline,
yeah,
show somebody their landline, all distance, X, Y, and Z, mega monopoly company for the last 80 years, when that one was talking about monopoly. The phone company, if you want to call it a monopoly, was shattered at one point. But when you come down to it, their tax and surcharge, E911 on a landline conventional, can top out at $14 to $15 a month. When you times it by annual, it'll pay for triple services with a cable provider for approximately 1.8 months for 3 services.
Well, and Tony, I'm going to let you go because I want Paul to just comment quickly on this. What Tony's saying, he works for a cable company. He says the cable company needs to do a better job educating consumers about where all these costs come from, and just let people know, as opposed to burying it in the fine point at the bottom of the bill. You say, here's why this costs this. Here's why this costs this. Here's how you can help us get the cost down. Make sense?
It does, to a certain degree, but we also have to provide alternatives. And we're doing that. We're looking and experimenting. We're talking about something that's literally unfolding. We talked about earlier 2 deals that have been made in the last day or 2. This is a story that's being written, and I'm not sure where it's going to go. I know this, that we're every meeting we're talking about the consumer. We're talking about competition. And we are trying to provide the consumer with the type of service that he or she wants. And that's number one. And look, do we fall down sometimes? Absolutely. But we're also incredibly innovative, and we're going to continue to be that way. And we're going to continue to make sure that the consumer wants our service, that we're the best service around, most reliable, and have the best customer service.
Paul Cianelli is president of New England Cable and Telecommunications Association. Thank you so much for coming in and answering all these questions and talking with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. That time went very quickly.
It did go quickly, didn't it? I also want to thank Joshua Braun, assistant professor of communications at Quinnipiac University. Thanks for being here as well, Josh. You can continue the conversation at WNPR.org, keyword where. Tucker Ives produces our show. Katie Tolarski is the senior producer. I'm John Dankosky, and this is Where We Live.